What's up, guys, and welcome to the first ever episode of Meet Me at Midnight. I'm your host, Grayson, aka Gray. I'm so excited to be starting this podcast. I love talking about everything we're going to be covering, and it's been a dream of mine to start a podcast. So let's get into some details. So this podcast is going to cover anything paranormal and true crime. That's from topics of actual places and people to movies, games, and more. If it's dark and spooky, I'll probably cover it. Like, paranormal includes myths, monsters, aliens, ghosts, demons, you name it. And then true crime, talk about mass murders, serial killers, less known crimes, cold cases, whatever you guys and I can think of. I have, like every woman in the United States ever, have always been obsessed with true crime and serial killers. I've loved listening to other podcasts and documentaries, TV shows about this kind of stuff. Totally not serial killers or anything, but definitely true crime. Shout out to Law & Order SVU, because that was my shit growing up. Even now, let's be honest. And then I've always believed in the supernatural as well. I spent a lot of time in my childhood watching like Ghost Hunters, and then I've had a few of my own experiences. And then now I spend a lot of time watching YouTube, paranormal investigators like Sam and Colby, Seth Borden, Exploring with Josh, The Overnight Channel. I've probably spent way too many hours on YouTube as it is, but they just keep releasing more, so what am I supposed to do? So, with all that said, again, I am super excited to be starting this. Also wanted to cover the reason for the title. Midnight's like a spooky time, like it's dark out. Like I was imagining like a dark, moonless, like new moon night where it's pitch black and it's just creepy. Like you're meeting to tell some scary stories and creep the hell out of each other. So this week I am doing a paranormal story, a paranormal ghost story. I'm going to be talking about the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of, but if you haven't, get locked in because we got a lot happening. So I'll go into a little bit of like the history first. The Stanley Hotel was opened in 1909 by Freeland Oscar Stanley and his wife Flora. Freeland had originally arrived in Estes Valley for the first time in 1903, and that was when he was just coming off of being sick from consumption, aka tuberculosis. He said he had felt far better after one summer in the valley, so he came back for 6 more years before finally opening the hotel. The reason for opening the hotel was because Stanley and his wife were used to the comforts of like the East Coast high society and wanted to bring that to Estes Park. So naturally, after this hotel opened, it became a sort of holiday retreat for the wealthy society members. So it was definitely like very bougie and posh, like in its heyday. And then after creating the hotel, Stanley also brought like electricity and running water to Estes Valley as well. So he kind of like took over the valley and like made this the hot spot for people to come visit. And then in building the Stanley, the whole of Stanley's land is 160 acres, and the hotel itself covers 31 acres. So there's like the main hotel, and then there's like side buildings as well. So with all of that included, the hotel itself takes over 31 acres of land, which is only a fraction of the 160 acres, but that's a massive hotel. There is also speculation, so we're kind of getting into like the reasons why this place might be haunted. There is speculation that there are caves underneath the hotel, like old cave systems that contain large amounts of limestone deposits, which limestone is a incredible paranormal conductor and is prone to releasing electromagnetic fields or EMF, which the paranormal feed off of. That's like the energy that they use. So basically, limestone's a supercharged battery of paranormal activity, which is only reason number one why the Stanley Hotel could be haunted. It's also said that the hotel is supposedly built on an Indian burial ground, but there really isn't any evidence to support that. It's just something that a lot of people have said over the years. You can't really say anything for or against it, but take take that how you will. And then Greenland Stanley died in 1940, and around 30 years later in the 1970s, the hotel had faded and was lackluster just due to lack of care after he died, and it was on the brink of closing in 1974, but there was a fateful night when Stephen King had stayed one night in the hotel. It was said that this one night was the night that inspired the events of the well-known book and movie The Shining. So basically, King and his wife needed to get a hotel, and they happened to get in on the last opening night before the hotel closed for the winter due to the snowstorm. So if you stay there during the winter, you'd get snowed in for the entire winter, basically. They were the only guests in the hotel that night, and they stayed in room 217, which is super popular, super famous, haunted, and we'll get into a little bit more of the story as to why a little bit later. And it's not really clear what Stephen King experienced that night, but it said that he had a lucid dream, or more like nightmare, where a coiled fire hose came to life and chased his screaming son as he ran down the halls of the hotel. He was also quoted saying that it was like God had put him there to hear that and see those things, which is super creepy in itself and like ominous. I'm just trying to imagine like the scene with like the two little girls at the end of the super long hallway and the little boy on a bike, and I'm just thinking like, here's Johnny just like screaming and running through the entire hotel. And then there's also coincidentally a pet cemetery at the hotel as well, which is kind of cute, kind of freaky. It also happens to be the name of another one of Stephen King's novels, but it had really nothing to do with the inspiration for it. They just happened to have one. So I thought it was worth mentioning. But a lot of people in the area have put their animals to rest there, and there's even said to be a ghost golden retriever named Cassie, who still delivers newspapers and scratches at doors, which is absolutely adorable. I have cats, but I would love a ghost dog. And then on to talking about room 217. So the most haunted, one of the most haunted rooms in the entire hotel. Here's a history behind that room. So in 1911, 2 years after the hotel had opened, the power had gone out for the first time. So gas lanterns had been installed in each room for light for the guests. Well, apparently there was a gas leak in room 217, so the whole room had been filling with gas. That was when a chambermaid named Elizabeth Wilson had entered the room with a lit candle and had set off a massive explosion that affected like 10% of the hotel and had launched her to the first floor. So after the event, obviously she had been badly injured and she was in a coma for 2 years. And when she woke up, she came back to the Stanley and continued to work there until 1950, which is absolutely insane, because if I had been somehow blown up inside of the place where I worked, I would never go back. Like, I think the people back then were just built different, because I would never go back at all. Like, if I got blown up in my current job, absolutely not. I would be asking for a check and I would be out the door. But today, since she spent most of her life there, it said that she still inhabits that room. Some of the things that happen there are, guests will say that they wake up or come back to the room and it's been like tidied up with clothes and suitcases folded and organized. Which, what a nice ghost. I don't even like cleaning as it is or like tidying up. I don't even like folding my own laundry. So for her to just be, her residual energy to just be walking around folding people's clothes and packing up their suitcases all nice. I could use an Elizabeth Wilson in my house. And then it's also been reported that the bed has been made around people while they slept in it. So like imagine you're laying in bed getting ready to go to sleep and there's a ghost just tucking you in. Like give you a kiss on the forehead, just tucking you in like, good night, sweetie. People also say that they feel somebody settle into the bed with them when they're trying to sleep. So I think the creepiest part would be like if you're with somebody, like a spouse or a friend or something, and you just feel you feel something like crawl into bed on the other side of you and you just think it's them and you look over and there's no one there. That'd be terrifying. Also super creepy if you're alone too, but if like you were expecting it and then all of a sudden you like look over Or like you call out for them, or like you start talking to them and you're like, what? I can't hear you. Like that would scare the shit out of me. Also, doors open on their own and things fall over, things go missing, usual ghosty stuff. And then, as far as Freeland Stanley, obviously he was dedicated to this place in life, so it makes sense that he would stay there after death. It was the place he felt the best. He's often sighted in the billiard and bar room, either sitting at the bar having a drink or actually playing billiards, which is kind of cool. I think I don't know if that's like an active ghost thing. I haven't really seen anything of people like conversing with him. It's like a residual thing where like he replays the same night over and over again. Like he has a drink at the bar, he plays billiards, and just over and over it just happens again. And then we're going to talk about the concert hall and the music room, which have the highest concentration of ghosts. So there's 5 different ghosts and a haunted object that we're going to talk about in these spaces, mostly in the concert hall. The first one, we're going to talk about Flora Stanley, Freeland's wife. She loved music, and both the concert hall and the music room were specially built for her. She's seen walking across the stage of the concert hall, just like going back and forth and then disappearing. People will hear the piano keys playing when no one's sitting there. And then often her presence is indicated by the smell of roses, which can be found all over the hotel. Like, I don't know if anyone listening to this has seen Sam and Colby do the Stanley, but they had walked into their room on the 4th floor and immediately smelled roses. It was just kind of like a weird thing. We're like, oh my god, like that must have been Flora. Which at least she smells good. And then the music room is... Listen, if this place wasn't haunted before due to like an Indio burial ground or the limestone or whatever, it's definitely haunted because of this. So Flora in the music room used to host what they called spiritual parties with the wives of the elite. They would perform seances and use Ouija boards to contact the other side. So if you know anything about Ouija boards, you're not supposed to mess with them. You don't know who you're contacting. So, I mean, seriously, if this place wasn't haunted before, it 100% was because of that alone. But go her. If I was living in the early 1900s and had nothing better to do besides, I don't know, kind of do whatever because she didn't have to work, I'd probably host spiritual parties too. How else is she supposed to have fun, you know? Another ghost in the concert hall, specifically in the basement of the concert hall, are where these next few are concentrated. So a really popular one is Lucy, who is said to be a little homeless girl who would break into the basement and hide there at night so she had somewhere like safe and warm to sleep. She died in that basement. She froze to death during the winter, and the caretaker of the grounds found her body there the next morning. She's supposedly still there as well and is known to move things around. She's apparently very communicative with paranormal investigators. There's no real evidence that she as an actual human being existed, but a lot of paranormal investigators have contacted someone who answers to that name. A lot of people think that it's... Okay, I shouldn't say a lot, but some people, me being one of them, think that it's something taking on the persona of Lucy, like kind of wearing her like hat or like skin, like give me a Silence of the Lambs moment for Lucy, okay? Like claiming to be her so that people talk to it and like get their energy. So aka it's probably a demon. I would not be surprised in the slightest if it was a demon at all. Their demons are known to take on the persona of children to get people to communicate with them more and to get people to feel bad for them. But yeah, a lot of people use lollipops as a trigger object for her because she's supposed to be a kid, so she said to like move them around. Again, not a ton of evidence with that, but just something like the hotel staff has said to people is to like leave lollipops and she'll move them. Another ghost down there is Paul, who is the old security guard and groundskeeper of the property. He died shoveling snow. He had a heart attack and passed away right there. You can hear and see doors opening on their own and hear his keys jingling at night. It's like he's walking around doing his like rotation or whatever, which I wouldn't really think twice about that if I heard like keys jingling. If it was like the middle of the night and like there was no one supposed to be around, I'd probably freak out if I was like one of the workers or something. But if there were like meant to be people there and I just heard keys jingling, like I don't think I would think much of it. And then we have Dennis, who is apparently somebody you don't want to meet. He's a more malevolent spirit in the sense that he physically leaves his mark on people. So he'll leave scratches on people's backs, on the back of your neck and your arms when in the concert hall or in the basement of the concert hall, which is a hard pass for me. I've seen enough videos of evil ghost or demonic scratches, and I'm really good without that. And then last big ghost to talk about in the basement is Eddie. Eddie, or Edward, or Ed, is known to be he's known by his smell, which is a really bad BO smell. So you'll definitely know if he's around because it just smells like horrible BO. Like you've been outside in Phoenix, Arizona in the middle of summer and you're just sweating your ass off, that kind of BO. He's known to move objects around, and then these last two things that are super common for him are kind of freaky, but also really funny. So he likes to like kiss people on the cheek, like give them a little peck. And he also likes to smack people on the ass. So he's just like giving you like a little love tap, like a football player, which is really funny. I don't think I'd say no to that happening. I think that'd be a kind of fun experience. A little violating, but kind of a funny, like, hey, I got my ass smacked by a ghost. And then lastly, in the concert hall basement, there is a mirror in there that showed up out of nowhere. The hotel staff has no idea where it came from, who brought it, nothing. They know nothing about it except that it just showed up one day and they put it down there. And it's known to be the center of activity in the concert hall basement. It's has a more negative energy based on what I've seen. A lot of people will take pictures in the mirror, like a mirror selfie, and they'll see apparitions and faces and stuff show up in the photos afterwards. Just terrifying, but I would love to give it a try because that'd be pretty cool. Another reason why this Stanley Hotel is believed to be haunted is because there's a portal there. So the main staircase of the Stanley, it like goes up to the first landing, and on that first landing you can go either left or go right, and then there's more stairs up. So like on that landing on either end there are two mirrors facing each other. So when two mirrors face each other, it's supposed to create a portal or vortex, which is basically like a superhighway for spirits to come through. The portals and vortexes all over the world, they're supposed to like connect to each other across the country or across the world. Like a ghost from there could enter through a portal at the Stanley Hotel and be there, which is another reason why people think it's so haunted. Another like common theory is that if people believe it's haunted, then it'll be haunted. There's at least one person, this is something that a paranormal investigator had said, that at least one night every year, or at least one person every night of the year at the Stanley Hotel is there wanting to see a ghost and like believing that there is spirits there. So like with that kind of energy for like the past however many years, with all the paranormal tours and everything like that, you'd have to believe that people are like bringing that energy there as well, and that's why it's stayed so haunted. Anyways, on to the paranormal investigator who said that. His name is Connor Randall. He lived in the Stanley Hotel for 5 years and investigated, and during that time he created something called the Estes Method, named after Estes Park. So the Estes Method, it's a paranormal investigation technique where you have a receiver and a questioner, and the receiver puts on a blindfold. You're basically like numbing your senses out. So like you put on a blindfold and you put headphones on that are scanning through radio frequencies at a really fast rate, through something called a spirit box. And the idea is that if a spirit puts in EMF energy into that, they can make certain words pop out to you, so like certain words or phrases, so that you can communicate with them. The questioner on this side would be asking the receiver questions, or, well, asking the spirits questions, and then the receiver would relay the answers that they're getting through the spirit box in those headphones. And they'd be objective because the receiver can't hear what what questions are being asked. It's a method that's used worldwide by investigators all over to communicate with paranormal entities. I've actually seen a lot of paranormal investigators have incredible success with it, and it's something that I've always personally wanted to try. I want to be the receiver, but I don't have anyone who believes really in my life who would want to come with me to a scary place like that and be my questioner. So hopefully I find somebody who will be willing to do that. And then another one of the most haunted, it's one of the most active spots in the Stanley, but let's be honest, the whole fucking thing is haunted. I swear everything is like, every website's like, this is one of the most haunted spots. This is one of the most haunted spots. No, this is one of the most haunted spots. Yeah, it's all fucking haunted, okay? We get it. Anyways, one of the most active spots is the 4th floor of the Stanley Hotel. The entire floor is known to be extremely haunted. On the entire floor itself, you can hear children like running down the halls, like footsteps. You can hear a little like laughing and giggling when no one's there, which is terrifying. I mean, every like haunted ambiance noise on YouTube or something, there's always like some little girl giggling. So I could go without that. And then there are 3 specific rooms where a lot of things happen. Room 401 is one of the creepiest rooms on the floor. Women specifically are inappropriately touched. Use your imagination there. And then people hear and feel a presence, like a negative presence in the room's closet. And then a lot of objects like keys, phones, things like that will get moved or are lost and you can't find them. In room 407, there are multiple accounts of people being like tucked into bed again, same as room 217 with Elizabeth Wilson. Again, I could really do without that. That is so freaky. It's like a sleep paralysis moment, right? You're like laying there and you're like about to fall asleep and then your like eyes shoot open because you feel somebody tucking you in. You're like looking around and you're trying not to move because you're scared and you don't see anybody, but you can still feel like you're getting tucked in. That's terrifying. And then another freaky thing that happens in this room is that you can feel somebody sitting at the foot of the bed. Obviously, like you set up, nobody's there, but usually from the accounts that have been recorded, you can see the indentation of where somebody was sitting on the comforter though. So it means somebody was there, you just couldn't see them. And then in room 428, there are accounts of seeing an old Western cowboy leaning over people as they slept, or see him like standing in the corner of a room. Specifically, women in this room have a really fun time because he likes to give women like pecks on the forehead while they're going to sleep, kind of like a goodnight kiss. This room is on the top floor, but you can often hear footsteps above you, like walking, and then the sound of furniture moving as well, which doesn't really make any sense, but is equally terrifying. The Stanley Hotel is listed as one of the most haunted places in the United States. I feel like that's pretty clear why. It's definitely a dream destination. I would love to visit and stay a couple nights there. Just explore, maybe do some of my own investigating, just be like open to the experiences. Also, I've never been to Colorado, so I'd like to go there just for that as well. Thank you, everybody, for whoever listened and got this far. I'm so excited to continue to do more fun stories and spooky stories. I'll be releasing episodes every week on Friday mornings at midnight. Duh. But I will see you guys then. Bye.